welcome to Golf Training Hacks. You know, there's so much asymmetrical force in a golf swing. So what do I mean by asymmetrical force? Well, obviously you're rotating in one direction over and over again, but there's also side bending. So now we have asymmetrical rotation, side bending with a lot of shearing and compressive forces. Now those forces, especially on your downswing and into impact, end up being more on one side of your spine than the other, right? Because when you're side bending into impact, you're bending to one side with a lot of force on it. Now what does that mean to your back, to your spine? Well, that means that on one side of your spine, if this is the side bending and these are two vertebrae, you have a lot of compressive forces added to the discs on that side. Now on the other side of the vertebrae, you have your ligaments and tendons being stretched more than they'd like to be. And you're doing this all while rotating at a high speed and putting a lot of compressive and shearing forces into those vertebral joints. So clearly, that's not what your spine wants to do, to say the least. So in this video, what we want to do is get some unloading onto the side of your torso. We want to relieve some of the tension and pressure that the muscles and spine on the side of your back really feel during the golf swing. So the first thing we're going to do is do some soft tissue work on the side of your torso to relieve some of the tension and stiffness. And then we're going to work with Cheryl, our Golf Training Hacks yoga instructor, to do some gentle unloaded side bending. Now, why is that important? Well, that's going to get your spine used to that side bending position without so much force in it. So we don't want to just run into the golf swing and put all that kind of force into a spinal position that's really just an injury waiting to happen. Okay, so let's get started with helping our backs accept the force in a golf swing. Before we even start, let me just say that rolling up and down on a muscle is not very effective. So if you're on your quad and you're just rolling it like this, you're really not doing too much. But what you are doing is finding what hurts. And that's why we will roll up and down on a muscle. So what I'm going to first do is put this roller towards the bottom of my ribs, and I'm just going to roll up and down a little bit. Just, well, you do get some blood flow in there, but just to see where I might be stiff or where I might want to work. Now let's say this is the position that I feel a lot of stiffness or some discomfort, maybe a little pain. There's a couple of things you can do. I'm going to roll across the muscle. So I'm going to go towards the back and then towards the front. And I'll be breathing when I'm doing this, in and out through your nose. Okay, so that's number one. That's the first way to be more productive when you're using a foam roller. The second way, in this case, when we're rolling on our lats, I'm going to put the pressure on the roller. I'm going to shift my weight forward. So I'm kind of bunching up that lat muscle behind me, and then I'm going to roll onto it. Now I'm going to shift my weight backwards. So I'm kind of bunching up that lat muscle in front of me, and then I'm going to roll on it. So I'm going to push my body to you, get that lat muscle behind me kind of bunched up, and then roll back. I'm going to then push back and roll forward. So it's a back and forth motion. Forward, and I'm shifting backwards. And again, you should be breathing. That's a productive way to do it, an effective way to do it. The third way is you can just breathe on the spot that's a little stiff or a little painful. So you can just find a trigger point or a stiff spot, take a deep breath in. You can contract 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, and then relax. So take a deep breath in. I hold that breath and I contract 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, and then I relax by letting the breath out. If you don't want to contract and relax, you could just stay on that area and just breathe naturally. Just take some nice deep diaphragmatic breaths. And just relax over the roller. Okay guys, so there are several ways that we can work on the lat muscles, because your lats are connected actually to the upper arm and into your pelvis, so it's very important for rotation. So getting the lat muscle more pliable, more extensible, and functioning better is going to help with hip rotation.
To get into our lower back, our lower lumbar spine, and our side body, we are going to do some child's pose today, which is balasana. We're going to do extended balasana, Utthita balasana, and we're going to incorporate some lateral bending and stretching and getting some air and energy into the lower back and side body. So here I am in my hero's pose, and we're going to come to on the blanket, on the mat. I'm going to go sideways so you can see better. And your sits bones are down on your heels. Traditionally, child's pose, you come down, you hinge at the hips, you come forward. And sometimes if it's hard to reach your forehead and make contact with the ground, you can use a prop of a block or something that will assist raising the ground to you. Traditionally, child's pose, your hands are behind. And you're simply breathing in to the lower back, inhaling, feeling the belly, and exhaling and releasing all that air, and breathing into where you have any soreness or stiffness. Feel yourself move the air into those spots, and then exhale. Now, you can also choose to separate the knees wider on the blanket or the mat, and then you could scoot your sitting bones down a little bit and make space for your middle to sink even lower. You can also raise this up with more blankets or a pillow if it's more comfortable, and come down. And here we come down into child's pose extended. And you can keep the block here, but you want a neutral spine. So don't collapse, hinge at the hips, sort of drape forward and make contact with either a block or an alternative prop if you have a book available, and then, or wherever it's comfortable for you on the blanket or the mat, and breathe into this lower back. Inhale and exhale by emptying the belly, the ribs, the lungs, the chest, all the air out. In order to get a side lateral stretch, we're going to bring the hands to the right, and if it's comfortable, one can be over the other, melting the shoulder down. Inhale and concentrate the air to the side stretch, and exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Come back to center and onto the other side. Inhale to lengthen. Breathe into the side body and then exhale. Move the energy, move the fluid. Feel the grounding. And come back to center and walk back up. And you could come back to your hero's pose, and we have done child's pose for the lower back. You should feel much better. So for this supine inversion, it's going to relieve a lot of the tension and stress in the lower body, make the lower back feel better, and move the fluid. And also, it's good for anxiety and stress and the lymph. So come down to a supine position and simply put your legs straight up, neutral but stacked. If you do have something, you could add a weight on the top of your feet, a pillow. I mean, some people do sandbags because that just gives a little more pressure, and it's in a good way pressure to relieve and get the fluid and the energy to fall down, because usually this lower part of our body is always flipped the other way as we're standing or sitting. So this is really great, and right away it relieves the pressure on the lower back. Breathe a big breath into the belly, into that lower back, and exhale. Now, this can be done against a wall. It's very relaxing, and it can be done for as long as you're comfortable. If there's discomfort, then you start over and give yourself a break. Another thing that is really nice is if you do have a block and you put it under your sacrum, then you can lift your hips here, find the end lower part of your spine and your sacrum there, and come up and elevate a little bit. Is wonderful to move the fluid. And here you can absolutely point and flex, rotate the ankles, and just make sure that when you're up on the block, make sure you don't collapse down here. You want to just keep your chest open, keep your shoulders down and back on the mat. And this is wonderful. And the longer that you do it, it's also a yin yoga pose. There's a lot of internal benefits for stress release and lymph fluid movement. And inversions do stop the cortisol. So that's a wonderful side benefit. Just be careful when you're coming down. You want to bend your knees, put your soles of your feet flat on the mat, and remove the prop or the block that you were using, and come back up to seated carefully, because now when you've been in an inversion position, you want to just go slow, lifting your head and your heart back up. Thank you.
So if you found that helpful, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We'd really appreciate it. And don't forget, check out other videos on the channel to help you improve your movement quality and keep that useful fluid swing while staying injury-free.